I'm not saying first pick, but on one of the few players that still actually likes that Nautilus. It's his most played of the split. Pretty much everyone else has forgotten about the pick. BLG start things off, as many teams have in this playoffs, with that Renekton blind pick for the top side. We've seen Jace's punish it. We've seen Kennan's punish it. We've seen many teams punish it.
Looking over at the side of Breathe, though, he has been the Renekton player. He's the guy that would pick that up the most. So taking that away from him and giving yourself a stable pushing early lane, typically for the side of BLG, yeah, there are some things which can contest it, as you were saying. But still, that safe early pushing lane can be very, very valuable as Tarzan picks up that Zyra, so clear speed queen being locked in.
I will say, Breathe has played 3 games of Kennen this split, and he's won all 3 of them. I feel like, you know, Breathe is definitely a player that's comfortable going for a counter pick, but Xiaohu going to grab himself that Zeri. Zeri is starting to become a bit of a main character of the mid lane in playoffs.
It's so powerful, and what it also allows you to do is we use that wall ride to play very, very defensively in side lanes. Xiaohu, the biggest thing which stuck out to me was how when they went into the 1-3-1, Xiaohu was playing absorbing 3-man ganks. So BLG, they will need to be a little bit afraid of Xiaohu kind of setting up the map very, very effectively as Knight goes towards the Corki. Have to say, not been his priority pick throughout this year so far, and that sadly is global banned. You see it in the middle, or is not available to be picked. So the bunny will was 100% presence before, of course, it was global disabled. Will not be gracing our screens for this moment in time. But yeah, Knight goes towards that Corki, trying to scale up in the AD carry versus AD carry matchup.
It does feel like Xiaohu, with an incredibly strong side laner like Zeri, and his strongest style has always been the side laning. It is a match made in heaven, isn't it? And the Zeri stats look good as well, but the Maokai locked in potentially for Wei could also be technically a support flex, but I would anticipate that going into the jungle, being somewhat of a hard engage, somewhat of a disengaged pick as well for the side of BLG. As Weibo have to decide their third and final lock-in. Remember, Leona still open and available.
Yeah, but Ezreal is, Ezreal's so strong. It's one of Light's best matchups. So now you can take the Ezreal, ban away the Kai'Sa. The Misfortune's already gone. And I think Light is going to have himself a very cushy laning phase there. They could have also thought to lock in someone like a Cassandra there too. And the reason I say that is that if you picture the team fights already with the 3 picks in, without the other champions completing that draft, someone being stood there to deny the Maokai ult could be so important. Having that Cassandra W to go unstoppable would have been really nice to have that on 3. Even though it's a losing lane-ish versus the Renekton, you can stabilize it. That could have been valuable. It wouldn't surprise me to see BLG potentially banning away that and maybe something like the cannon as well, if they want to stop Breathe having impact.
I do wonder what direction BLG will go in with their bottom lane. Things like Ziggs up, which we've really seen sort of fall off a bit in playoffs. Much less Ziggs play than at the end of summer. Things like the Senna as well, which only really BLG and top esports have been particularly interested in. Don't know if that's something BLG will really want to look towards. But as you say, Kai'Sa's still up and available. That's something L absolutely loves to play. It's great into the Ezreal. I would not be surprised to see yet that is taken off the board.
So BLG, yeah, I think Cannon's a good ban here. Unless you want to do something like a Caitlyn Braum and you want to ban away the Karma. That's the other thing, because Ezreal Karma can kind of screw with some of those lane dominant lanes, because Ezreal Karma is one of those historic lanes to that lane dominance level. They ban out the Leona instead, so Cannon is available for Breathe, expecting a top lane pick here from Weibo, and then save for last pick support counter pick, particularly because BLG love their lane dominant bot lanes. You don't want to leave yourself up for lane dominant counter pick, bot lane being locked in by BLG without having your own support counter pick.
So Weibo not going to go for the cannon. Instead, going for that Gragas. We saw what 369 was able to do on a tank Gragas against the Renekton yesterday. It was brutal. We'll see if Breathe can resemble that as BLG look towards their own bottom lane. We mentioned the Ziggs. It certainly could be a potent pick in terms of getting that lane presence and having a bit of AP damage within the roster as well.
Yeah, so that's going to be combo-based bot lane. Doesn't have to be weak side. Ziggs very good at killing towers if you can get yourself ahead in that lane, and you did highlight that Nautilus before on one of the few people that still plays it. REll is the person that kind of clumps people up into the ult though. That's the multi-target combo you can get through, because that one's locked in. Nice and easy for the teamfight engage.
So REll through, and now Weibo. Final lock-in here. Alistar has become a big priority support, especially because of the presence of REll. It's so good into the pick individually, being able to deny the combo, being able to just get her away from your team as well. but also pretty good at setting up for dives, potentially. When you've got a Zyra coming out of the jungle, could be an option for the side of Weibo.
Also allows you to be someone who, we said this about the Cassandra, but you can shrug off the Maokai ult. Maokai ult throws the ult at you, and the Alistar can press ult to counter it, be that blocker in the front line, go and cleanse off the Nature's Grasp. So, as we're looking at these team compositions, I think BLG, they have some really cool dynamic combos where you have the Maokai ult starting off to corral Weibo into a certain position, and then you have REll and Renekton coming in from different angles. Hopefully the carries of BLG can follow up with enough damage. On the other side though, I think the cast, great disengage. Alistar ult, great disengage too. And of course Zyra, the queen of that from the jungle too. I think we're definitely going to see that come into play. BLG try and set up this...
Against the reigning champions in BLG as we head into game number 1 of our top 4 here in the LPL.
And the crowd descends into its madness after the initial shouts. I love seeing these crowds, man. The LPL crowds always very, very passionate about their teams, and they have absolutely every right to do so. I think it's also important to note, folks, that, of course, we are down to our last teams to qualify for Worlds. No LPL team has technically qualified yet, but the teams which are still in it are, of course, our 2 teams here today, but also Top Esports, LNG, NIP, and JDG as well, which spread between either the teams left in, and, of course, that regional qualifiers. So we actually have a very, very open bracket to keep things off in terms of looking forwards from this point.
We certainly do. I mean, honestly, the top 4 this year in LPL are kind of insane. When you look at these 4 teams, it's absolutely mental. If these are the 4 teams that make it to the World Championship, my LPL looks pretty strong for that tournament. Obviously, LCK also looking pretty good right now, but I'm just excited to see the rest of this bracket, you know. We've still got 6 best-of-5s to go in playoffs, and every single one of them looks to be incredible quality. I don't feel like we've got a bad 4th seed in the way that LPL almost always does.
Yeah. No, I think that I'm looking at LPL right now, and it's actually quite hard to call as clearly as it has been in the past. The top teams, as we've done before, champions, or even just our top couple of teams, very, very hard to tell the difference in terms of predictions between them. As we go into this early game, we are going to see Tarzan pathing towards bot side, Way on the other side of things, pathing from bot to top. Weibo have much better jungle pathing early information, though, because they do have wards onto that Raptors. They'll spot Way now, and of course they had some defensive vision in their own jungle too to make sure that no one was putting down wards onto their own red buff as Tarzan was coming through. And as we've highlighted early jungle pathing, this could be very, very important. That information does make a difference.
And Way not doubling back for any shenanigans or anything like that, so it will be this bottom lane of BLG in the 2v2, getting some good damage on Chris, but on is traded back by Light. Nice little bit of damage out from this Ezreal, and importantly, Tarzan is pathing towards this bottom lane. The wave is stacked up. You've got an Alistar. I mean, this could be a dicey situation for the BLG bot lane.
Yeah, Tarzan was even yeah, you can see that backstep. He was thinking about skipping Gromp, and he is exactly doing that. He's coming down for a very quick timing. Tarzan, once again, bold early path, dropping a camp to make a play on the map.
So, Light's got to clear this wave out as fast as possible, get this minion wave underneath the tower. I think Tarzan maybe had time for his Gromp, to be honest, as he waits for this wave to get underneath the tower in the bottom lane. 4 minions to work with. That should be enough. Tarzan moves in on an Elk on their own. Good flash, but instant double pull from Chris, but he's locked up under the tower. An Elk, and on, find the first blood. Tarzan takes a chunk as Elk throws these bombs out relentlessly. Light on the edge of aggro range, though, answers in kind.
So, 1 forward in the dive. Big thing here, though. Light has to reset, and Elk has a teleport, so he's actually not even that unhappy with this. Weibo, they make the bold early play again. Tarzan once again drops a camp to make a play happen. It's not the cleanest thing they could have gone for, but it's still something on the board. I think Tarzan getting that kill also very, very important, because he's going to get himself an easy Fated Ashes on his first back, because he will get that extra kill gold involved there. Now, of course, he goes back for his Gromp as well. Didn't find time for it before. Finally gets that time to take it.
Importantly, Way did manage to get a ward onto those chickens, so we'll see if that changes anything as they engage. Fantastic from Chris. Double pulverize.
it is really nice, but a lot of the cooldowns are still there from Elkanon, and that no one dies in the duration of the CCs. They do get to fire back, and when you're dealing with level 3 champions across the board, just getting a rotations of abilities out is really important. Can get you an awful lot of damage back down, which is exactly what we saw there. So Elk, he teleported back in towards that bot lane, got himself the next wave, and now he's recalling again to get himself that lost chapter. Lost chapter at 4.5 minutes. Elk is very, very happy with that one. Fairly sure at that point, as Light and Crisp, they get to come back to lane with a tier, but actually at this point, Light is behind in combat stats compared to Elk. That can affect this 2v2. We'll see whether Elkanon can now get some control over this lane, because now the problem is they have the combat stats. If they start pushing in and Ziggs starts hitting tower, Ziggs is then hitting a tower. That is a problem. Don't have to explain that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, lost chapter, 5 minutes in, is pretty nice going for Elk, if all things considered. Be happy with how this one started. And remember that was a 3-man commit on the bottom side, so Wei, didn't necessarily manage to get anything else done. But in the meantime, he's found his way through the bottom side of this jungle, and he wants to influence this bottom lane for once. Crisp has no flash and is half HP. Wei has a free entry in, surely does go for the engage. Thought he was walking away for a second there, and he does grab the kill.
I think he was maybe a little bit afraid because he saw that Tarzan potentially could be heading towards here. Now he needs to be careful. He has flash. Does need to be careful though.
Sapling spots out Tarzan and will get the slow down. Follows the flash and Q over the wall as well. But the bombs coming through from Elk and doing so much work. Wei though might not get away with this one and has to flash. Xiaohu was on his way. And BLG don't want any of that.
Yeah, you can see at the start of that play where he was thinking, oh, if this play goes long, we could be really in for it. He does get that kill anyway, rightfully so. And gets out just using that flash, blowing Tarzan as well. I think very important for this. I think the Zyra with that flash will feel a little bit more vulnerable than the Maokai on the other side of this. Now, getting back out of these plays. That's an ult under turret. Bin, you might need to pop the Dominus.
Oh, been chunked. I mean, this is what we saw yesterday. Tank Gragas finding solo kills onto Renektons. Can't breathe, pull it off. There's the flash. And he doesn't even Q. He just lets Bin go for the ult.
So close. If Breather managed to get just one little extra bit of damage, he would have got the kill, but Bin gets the immediate HP back from that Dominus. Close run thing in this top side, and this is now a problem for Breathe, because this is your point of power here in the Gragas versus Renekton matchup. You do lose the CS, but you tend to get the one solo kill opportunity. He's kind of lost that now. Bin survives that, and he's now going to walk away a very, very happy Crocodile with that CS advantage, which we were just talking about. While all this is happening, we have a trade of objectives. Tarzan took that dragon, BLG take the 3 early grubs.
Decent start, honestly, for BLG. It's small advantages, but advantages nonetheless in both of those side lanes. Mid lane's neutral. It's going to be down to Tarzan here. He's the one with the lead for Weibo, and he has been somewhat of a main character for the team. I mean, hang on, I'm going to stop talking. I was going to talk about MVPs here, but we've got an invade going on, and I feel like a fight could happen any minute between these two teams. Chris moving in to try and help Tarzan just steal away as much as possible.
Hey, what were we saying? That's when we were loading into this series. LPL has been so early game focused, and Tarzan particularly has been a very dynamic path there. I think that BLG, you can see that they have a good understanding of where the early game play is going to be made. Elk right there, just making sure he can clear through that wave there, uses his ult, but it means there's no extra dive threat coming through into that one. And this is some of the difference, which of course, I think Wei brings to the side of BLG too. Maybe if they had Shun, they'd be looking for a fight there. I think that Wei, he's more of a player that really tries to be a bit more stable. He goes for the farm here on the other side, takes back some camps to make sure that even though Tarzan gets a huge host of camps from his own jungle, he does at least return in kind.
Yeah, and also just playing towards a strong side as well, right? Been so far ahead on this Renekton at this point. He's quite happy to split the map because you've got a Ziggs bot too, so it's very easy to clear those minion waves. Breathe going to try and deny Wei another jungle camp here. Will just get one of those Krugs, and now maybe setting up for Xiaohu. Root comes on through. There's a knock up onto Wei. No flash available for the tree. And it's easy pickings for Xiaohu.
Yeah, so he was playing on strong side, and then the strong side left, and he was just on his own. So he's overstays, and that's going to be a really important kill over to Xiaohu now. We said that Xiaohu's had a bit of a resurgence in his own play. Most of this year he'd been really struggling, but the back half of this summer, Xiaohu has been very, very powerful. And on the Zeri too, he has looked very, very good in the games we've seen him on recently. Getting a kill there, very, very important for Weibo.
I mean, we've seen twice now Xiaohu roaming to these side lanes. Knight so far invisible in this game. He's just been sticking to mid lane. Doesn't have a CS lead or anything like that. So we'll see. I mean, he might be able to push a couple of minions in under tower here, so maybe can build a minor CS lead, but need to see him start influencing the game on this Corki. Xiaohu already on the board. And those Zerka Greaves feel so good on this area. It feels like such a big pickup.
You can see right here, you know, Wei going through the top side, trying to answer to the Zyra on the other side of it, but of course both junglers traded Flash earlier. Breeze knows that he has his mid laner coming, and I think this is an important thing about Zeri. Zeri, sometimes it is helpful to think of her E as a semi-global ability, because this is not a normal range dash. This is not okay. He gets to go right the way across the map and come through with a huge amount of damage coming through from their first ult as well. Zeri actually has good burst damage if you get that ult on target. And Xiaohu just using that roaming potential of Zeri really, really well. She is actually quite well kitted out to be a mid laner because she can just wall ride like that.
Feels like a perfect pick for Xiaohu. Honestly, it feels like this being a mid laner was destiny for him. But Knight disagrees as he just straight up out-trades Xiaohu, just to make me eat my words. But Xiaohu so far, 3 games on the pick this year, 100% win rate, 9 KDA. Like this is a pick that Xiaohu has been really enjoying. And it's later on into the game, once side laning really comes into the picture, that's where he separates himself from the pack.
Xiaohu has always been a side lane god, really. That's where he arguably made his name, playing through side lanes, whether that was in top lane or in mid lane. He's done it over different roles over different amounts of time. The pick is very much going to help him with that one. So, we have ourselves, all things said and done, actually quite an even-ish early game, because we do have you know, 1,000 gold in it, 10 minutes, 11 minutes. That's still not a bad gold lead for BLG. It's okay for this point in the game. We do have those splitted objectives on the other side of things. We have Grubs and we have Dragons coming up, and we'll see where that comes into it beyond that point. But really, because we have even-ish gold, I want to see how side lanes are going to go beyond this point, because both of these teams have really liked to go towards side lanes in that mid-game and try and use these dynamic teleports to try and split open the map.
I'm so glad that we do get that, as you say, a sort of relatively even early game to start us off in this series. It's only 1,000 in favour of BLG. They will get 6 grubs, which is a pretty nice advantage, especially, as you mentioned, we could have side lane deciding a lot of this. Well, 6 grubs will certainly help in that regard, won't it?
Are you ready for Ziggs to just, like, half-health the tower at a single auto?
I mean, Renekton becomes a potent split pusher when 6 grubs are involved. Yeah, I don't know. Towers not looking like they're going to be very strong in this one for Weibo. As Wei going to go for an invade on the top side. I wasn't sure if he was going to try and set up as a breathe, but Bin was recalling. Again, every time Wei goes for these crooks, Bin is like, I'm out of here.
Ah, you got it. You know, I trust you. You'll be fine, right? An ally has been slain. That's the one kind of notification you have popping up. So we have had full trade of these early game objectives, Grubs for Dragons. I will say Weibo have good wave clear. So Renekton is not going to find it that easy to hit towers, and that can be a bit of an issue.
Bin's on the bottom side now. Elk has swapped up to the top lane. You can see the recalls coming through from Light and Crisp there to try and answer this swap. But remember, 6 grubs on a Ziggs, and that's a Ziggs with a full item as well. This tower might not survive long enough.
Yeah, BLG have just gotten ahead. I know it's a bit of a vague term, but they've gotten ahead in terms of tempo. They've managed to get back towards the lanes first. Weibo have to defend. They have to be very, very close. And now, this is the problem, because they haven't allocated their lanes quickly enough. They don't get the wave clear in position at the right time. Ziggs gets to hit turret. He has 6 grubs. That's going to be a satchel kill on that turret. First tower of the game goes towards the Ziggs. That's a hell of a lot of gold, and while all that was happening, Bin was actually taking a load of plates on the bot side as well. Huge amount of gold, immediately swings in BLG's favor. Side laning is definitely something that they're very proficient at, and they show it there.
Honestly, one of the biggest things that Weibo did well in their series against NIP was actually these lane allocations and finding advantages in a very similar way to what BLG just did to them. They've been beaten at their own game here, as it will be a tower on the top side. The fact that Bin is getting plates bottom side simultaneously, a lot of this playoffs has been about cross maps, has been about trying to answer. Tarzan wants to answer with a red buff down here, and it looks like he will get away with it.
So Tarzan does maintain a little bit of a gold lead individually, but that's the bright spot for Weibo right now. This is really dangerous for Weibo. They just gave over a ton of gold. You're going to get the next recalls coming through, or have actually just been completed here, and you now see those items starting to rack up from BLG. Herald's coming up too. You can't really allow a Herald to go over to a 6 grubs team, but what choice are Weibo going to have? You know, they're already getting pushed in across the board. I don't really think they can pull people from these lanes to go fight for that Herald. Yeah, it's spotting down there in the left-hand corner. Thanks for emphasizing the point there. Weibo do not want to let that go over to BLG.
They certainly don't. as you say, what choice do they have? Can they fight for this one? I mean, Light has his Triforce at this point, as Elk finishes another tower. Wasn't quite in time to get the bonus plates, but still, 2 towers, both of the local golds going into the Ziggs pocket. I want to see what Elk buys on this recall, because he might just be close to a second item. I think maybe not 2 items. Maybe that's a bit too much, but certainly another tier 2 component. In fact, he bought nothing.
Yeah, he ended up completing the first item before this, which is why
okay, there we go. There we go.
Resets through. And Xiaohu, we said he's good at playing defensively in side lanes, but he might still be caught out here.
Oh, the root doesn't quite connect. Wei finds the flash though, knocks him back into the team, and On can follow up with a CC chain. Bin cuts him down. And that's a nice pick for BLG right as Herald comes up.
Typically, Xiaohu's used this Zeri very, very well defensively. It's just that BLG are much more decisive and quick to the punch here. They managed to catch him even with the wall ride and that flash. So Weibo, the down and mid laner, he's not going to be up in terms of teleport timing for this Herald. On does use his ultimate, and he does have half HP now, though. I wonder whether HP differential means that Weibo can stick around for a little bit, wait for that teleport to come through. The kill onto Xiaohu might have just given the Herald over to Weibo all the same if they want to teleport in hard for this.
Bin has his TP, as does Knight. So they could recommit to this play, I suppose, off of the reset here, but looks like the answer is no. Looks like Knight is just going to push that wave in the bottom side, and Weibo will take themselves a Herald. So, nice objective for them, and an important objective for them. As you said before, 6 grubs already for BLG. You've got a Ziggs as well, which is probably one of the best Herald users in the entire game. You really couldn't afford to lose that objective as Weibo. They'll be very happy with that pickup.
Tarzan will be familiar with that because, of course, last year when he was in LNG, he was part of that team which played the Tristana Ziggs combo every time they possibly could with the Herald pushes to get huge advantages across the map. So that's a way for Weibo to get themselves back on the board in terms of turrets. They don't have any so far. They'd really like to open up the map just a little bit. Remember what we were saying from draft. BLG typically have the aggressive side of the combo. They pull the Maokai ult and they want to engage from multiple sides. Weibo want to be playing disengage and they want to be buying some space and play a little bit of keep away. It is much harder to do that when you are getting pushed into your inner turrets and you don't have any vision control to protect yourself from those multiple angles. I think BLG getting map control like this, it really opens up their aggressive options.
Playing in Pixel Brush here, Weibo, but nobody's going to go near it. Drake coming up, and perhaps a deciding moment in this game. It's been a quiet start to the top 4 here in the LPL, only 5 kills in 17 minutes. But BLG building themselves a pretty sizable lead at the moment, 3,000 in their favor as they start this Drake. And Herald actually dropped in the mid lane by Tarzan. Elk trying to get as much harass down as possible before this kicks off. I don't know if it will kick off as the Drake is already down to 5k. BLG, they might just have this in the bag uncontested. Has been there defending. The Drake will fall. Weibo don't really do anything, well, anywhere on the map.
They get themselves the Herald charge on mid to get half HP there, but it's not opening up the map in the way that we would have liked them to. And also, Breathe walked his way down to this fight, maybe trying to play defense, but now he's not in a side lane. Xiaohu was going to run into Wei as well. Should be okay. Might even just run at him.
Yeah, that's a 1v1 that Xiaohu wins. Wei realizes he's got to get out of dodge. Has that phase rush on the Maokai. So even Zeri looks slow in comparison to phase rush. Will walk away with his life, and we're still sparring. The Drake's already gone, guys. Like, I feel like we're still posturing as if it's up.
You know, this is a fun tangent. Did you know that palm trees can actually just walk? They can actually just walk over time. Well, this one's walking very close towards this mid lane. That's a cast going forwards.
Need context on that later. Is Breed feeling like a walking palm tree as he's walking away? Yeah, bit of a weak one there, but you know what? It was a bit of a weak fight, so it matched.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that's the Maokai coming in. I guess you could do that. But yeah, palm trees, they could just start walking with their
What do you mean? How do they walk?
Yeah,
that can't be possible.
They just move. They can just walk very slowly over extended periods of time. Look, trust me, look it up on the internet somewhere.
I know you've got a science degree in that, but I don't think that gives you the right to just state random things and try and persuade people. That is definitely not true. I refuse to believe you.
That's me trying to pass the charisma check at the same time. Hey, anyway, I'll do my research on that in the break beyond this one, especially with Wei being a very, very scary old tree in this one. And yeah, you can see the power of BLG. just again going slightly, I know, going back towards gameplay very, very briefly. You are seeing these aggressive engage combos coming in through that Maokai ultimate, trying to open up points like this, and of course eventually, death by 1,000 cuts, Weibo can't do the keep away well enough, they can't wave clear well enough, and now they've lost their full ring of outer turrets.
I mean, it's a 4,000 gold lead for BLG, and they got the most recent Drake. One, I guess, shining light for... Oh, actually, like, gonna get not just denied his recall, but loses basically half his HP to Elk at this point. This Ziggs is devastating. Remember I mentioned earlier that Knight has been a bit invisible in this game, not had much impact on this Corki. It's kind of not mattered, though. All he needs to do is clear waves, take up farm, just have enough items if team fights do kick off, but realistically, he's just on side lane janitorial duty.
What's kind of been interesting in this game, because we're talking about that Corki and not really doing that much, when we've seen players like, say, Shanks on the Corki, or, I mean, Xiaohu's had this kind of situation put to him as well, Scout is a player which takes a load of resources too. Typically, we see the Corki getting the side lane farm. Typically, we see him getting the side lane out of turrets. This has been given to Elk, and it's been given to Bin instead. Knight is not getting those resources at all.
No, just watching On and Wei struggle desperately to take a single ward. They do have to use a second sweep and charge at the end. Been trying to get onto Xiaohu here. Not going to commit any summoners or anything like that. Nothing crazy going on in that bottom side. And I have to say, not the start to the series that I expected. I was not anticipating such a slow start from both teams, especially BLG. A team historically that in playoffs do go aggressive.
There we go.
Speaking of aggressive, Crisp trying to find out, and the True Shot Barrage will finish the job. Tarzan turns gold, and in the meantime, there's a kill in the top side. Okay, I ask for aggression. It's answered immediately. There's a stun onto Crisp. I'm not sure why he took that blast cone, but now he's in a bit of a dicey spot. He's pathing to the wrong side of the map as well. Knocks him back into the team. Tarzan trying to survive in the back of the blue pit. The Ignite's not enough, and Crisp walks away.
What? How does that end up only being that amount of kills? I was sure that BLG were going to get something more out of that, but Tarzan, great damage from him, and Weibo do somehow manage to play a little bit of that keep away that we've been talking about from that draft. I think particularly Tarzan there with that turnaround burst saving the day from Weibo. As soon as that teleport came in from Knight after he'd recovered mana back at base, thought that would change things very, very drastically into BLG's favor. This does mean now that BLG have lost a little bit of that control which they just had before this point. Xiaohu managed to push out that bot lane, managed to push in this top lane as well, so he's got himself some farm there and pushes BLG a little bit further back. As we go into this replay, we'll see what happened on the top side of this, which is where Breathe finds where Knight... Yeah, I don't know what happened with Breathe's E cooldown. Maybe that was just not available, but he goes down very, very easily there as we see the Ziggs goes down importantly on the other side too. That's going to be quite important this next bit, because remember what we were saying before, Knight hasn't gotten the resources, the Ziggs has instead. The Ziggs goes down first, which means a lot of the gold goes with it. And even though Chris does kind of go a little bit too far, he does end up getting himself a really good headbutt to make sure he can buy enough space and somehow makes his way out of this.
I mean, the Stranglethorns from Tarzan, absolutely heroic there. That ultimate doesn't come through or it's misplaced. I think that's one dead cow. But either way, BLG still happy to sit on those objectives. They've got 2 Drakes in a row now, assuming that the smite is true from Wei. And that'll be 2 Drakes as well. Wei's going to be very happy with that, as is On. Neither of these guys really builds true tank. It's kind of this supportive build, and you're trying to play frontline. Martin Sol will certainly help bolster.
Absolutely. I think we have definitely gotten into a meta where supports can actually be tanks, and I think that having stuff like these extra dragons can really help with them. I think we've seen so much Leona, and Leona is just absurdly tanking. That can sometimes change your perception of them, though. We have seen, over time, a great many REl's and Alistars and Nautiluses still be kind of wet tissue paper when it comes to the big fights. So the Mountain Dragons, they'll definitely take those. I mean, it's not like supports get that much else in terms of items, so we'll take it.
I just love that both of our supports here, as we get to top 4, there was the nerfs to Warmogs and to the runes and whatever to make it so that Warmogs first doesn't work anymore. Well, they're still going Warmogs first. On and Crisp don't care. They're close to finishing that first item. Knight potentially assassinated in this top side, but just looks for the 1v1 on his opposite man. Xiaohu in trouble, burning on the Valkyrie! Oh! Knight finds it, 1v3, he gets his man!
Knight gets his honor duel in the top side, makes sure he fells his opponent, beheads him. Just before Weibo managed to take him down, that's a very important 1-for-1. They invested a teleport, and BLG will be able to make their way out of this too. Because the teleport was invested by Weibo and they overcommit towards this top side, they now suddenly don't have that answer on the bot side now. Bin with the 6 grubs can push in there. We'll see how much damage he does to that in a turret and how many waves he can stay for. But Knight overperforming in that 1v3 scenario on top side opens up extra options on the sidelines for BLG. As we said, both these teams love these sidelines.
Fantastic split-second decision-making from Knight, just finds his opposite man. We talked about Xiaohu and Knight being legends of the league. Well, Knight says this is my league now. He's the 3-peat right now, and he wants a 4th trophy.
I mean, serious credit to Knight here, where he realizes, look, I'm not getting out of this. Like, I gotta make sure I make a difference. Flashes into melee range of Breathe, because he knows he's gonna get the AoE, the big one. Exactly, he does go down, he does lose the flash, but he makes sure that Weibo's overcommitment towards this top side is actually met in kind.
Absolutely phenomenal from Knight there. A player that, you know, has been a stalwart of the very top of the league in LPL for a good old while. And for a long time, it felt like he couldn't convert that into trophies, you know. That story has ended. He's won the last 3 LPL splits, and he's wanting to do the same again here on BLG. They're looking for domestic dominance this year, and Weibo, the 4th seed, coming in, their first contender. Remember, this is the first game we see from BLG in playoffs. I gotta say, so far so good.
So, get ourselves back out onto the map. We talked about how the early game was maybe a little quieter than we thought, but we definitely knew that if these teams did have their fighting prowess ready and available, they are very, very good at getting themselves into side lanes later. And it's like, God, he just can't stand up against this Ziggs. The skill shot accuracy great from Elk, but Weibo tried to play the side lanes. They have failed. BLG can just go straight down the front and center.
I mean, who needs side lanes? When you're hitting bombs like Elk is, it's not like anyone can really defend. Phenomenal. There's a tier 2 down in the mid lane, and more map control for BLG on, just trying to buy as much space for his team as possible. That 1 ward in the Baron pit, it's going to be a real nuisance for BLG, but it's going to time out shortly. And to be honest, I don't think BLG are looking towards this Baron just yet, because Drake's coming up in just over a minute. That's probably the juicier prize.
BLG just have options. Bluntly, they just have options. Just full point. They can go towards side lanes. Being going to walk in towards Xiaohu does have those double buffs, and of course, it's level 16 on the Zeri. Hang on a second. Wait, that's a bit far, Xiaohu.
TP comes through from Knight. Xiaohu has his own flash available and instantly uses it. Bin looking to chase. Xiaohu gets over the wall, but he's into the wrong side of the map, and Bin completely fumbles his flash. The TP from Xiaohu, but Wei denies it. Lightning clash is all it's going to be, just a clash. But if it's a clash in the jungle and nobody hears, did it really make a sound?
Well, Wei is going to be walking away from that. I'm sure he'll tell some tales of it and make sure the observations are spread to the world. Weibo almost got themselves an escape out of there from Xiaohu, but it's not quite to be. Can't get himself out, and sadly Weibo weren't really in position to cross map either. One of the big praises I had for Xiaohu was him being able to play safely in these sidelines, but you're against BLG now. BLG are one of the best teams at punishing that in the world, and they've caught Xiaohu out now multiple times, 1 and 3 after he'd had that great couple of roams in the early game. And suddenly now BLG, they've managed to get control of these side lanes again. They start starving out vision around here. They have their options. They can go towards Dragon, they go towards Baron, they can go towards side lanes. Whatever they want, they're strong enough to do it.
They've got the run of the map at this moment in time. And to be honest, they are a team that typically, when they've got their way, there's not many people that can contend with it. There's not many people that can find their way back into a game that BLG is ahead in. Tarzan, though, on the Zyra, remember, very good at Baron, extremely good at Baron. Just setting up some plants in the area, potentially looking to trade for this Drake. And in fact, there is no vision in the pit, but I don't know, Elk's here, Wei's here, On's here. Knight's just soloing the Drake in the meantime, and that will be 3. Weibo realise there is no opportunity there. BLG doing a really good job of having presence on both sides of the map.
And also, it's very hard to do a Baron in that kind of setup against a Maokai while you're on red side, because you're behind in this game. There's a load of gold on a lot of these carries. That Ziggs is terrifying. We have, oh yeah, we've got Elkenheimer. How did we forget about this? Yeah, there we go. Got him in the bot lane, turning up again. Now, if that little yordle in the bot lane is packing that kind of heat, and Wei puts an ult down against this enemy team stuck against the wall because Weibo are on red side, that Ziggs is going to get point-and-click abilities after that point, and it really is going to be a blockbuster which Weibo will probably not want to be in the cinema seats for.
Could be an explosive finish to this one, just like it was back when we all went to IMAX a little while ago. Surprisingly controversial, that one, honestly. I thought it was pretty good, but I feel like there's...
I enjoyed it.
Lots of different opinions on that one. I don't want to start another debate. I really can't be bothered to debate about that film anymore. But
what I will say is that after seeing Robert Downey Jr. in Marvel for a little while, not that he was bad there, but actually getting to do like a very prestige kind of role like that, that was great. I really enjoyed his performance in that one. So hey, that's the one thing I'll say.
All right, well,
it's coming through.
Keep your eyes on Elkenheimer. Oh, Tarzan. Luckily, had his anti-blast glasses on, so doesn't take the damage. Crisp will, though. There's more rockets flying on through. No, okay, he goes down this time. I thought he'd done it again. In the meantime, 1v1 on the bottom side, but Bin has that Sterex. He's pretty tanky. Oh, Breathe goes wide on the knock-up, and Bin just walks away.
Yeah, so Bin and Breathe, neither of them able to teleport up towards this top side. Very weirdly close there from Weibo to get themselves something off of that. They almost caught out on, ends up being their support, which goes down at the other side. You can see that Tarzan and crew were trying to make sure that the Baron could be a way to bring BLG off of their lanes, which they're starting to really do some damage in, and have been continuing to do damage in, rather is the better way to phrase it. But they can't quite keep them there without the threat coming down at the same time. So, BLG, they're on soul point, 2.5 minutes until basically Weibo have to fight that. Weibo haven't been giving these big fights. I think they realize that if they go towards a big 5v5, they're in a lot of trouble. Even though they have that gold lead on the Zyra, it's so hard to play up the shape of these team fights. The Maokai is going to clump you together. That's going to bring you for the REll and the Ziggs. It's going to be really, really hellish to make your way through all of that tonnage of explosives that BLG are going to put towards them. So yeah, 2 minutes now, as we've been talking about this. Weibo, what are you going to do?
Only time will tell. And boy, have we had plenty of time in this game. This has been a slow one. This might be the slowest game of playoffs so far, honestly. Not what you necessarily expect from BLG, but to be honest, I do feel like maybe this is a sign of, like, playoffs. BLG is here now. You know, we're taking this seriously at this point. We're not going to be doing undisciplined play that we've started to expect from BLG sometimes. There are some games that I would describe as happy games this split, which perhaps, I mean, you know, I don't want to overstate it because I've seen I do happy games in playoffs before, you know, it's still possible, but so far in game number 1, feels like this is very much game faces for BLG.
Right, might need to schedule another test for that one. That one's not exactly worked out the way that he would have wanted to. Now suddenly, Weibo, they have both their teleports up. Ah, this is nice. So this is something that LNG do a little bit more. When they have double teleports and solo laners, they double stack them on one side of the map, blow open one side of the map, and still hold those teleports to do something else elsewhere. So while BLG have had significant gold lead, because it's slowed down, because now Weibo have just got themselves a turret there, Weibo are actually getting themselves into a point where they have the items they need despite that gold deficit, and the longer we go into the game, that gold deficit is going to mean less and less.
Good bit of damage from Light, trying to respond to the previous engage between the AD carries, but could be rooted up here, and will be that. That's the cleanse burnt as Crisp headbutts the chicken to get himself out to safety again. And actually, wait, is the one to get the chicken, the sapling, heroically finishes that one off. Now the TP behind enemy lines, it's all about to kick off. Elk, the target, Satchel charge out, but flashes away from the engage from Breathe, and here comes Knight to carry the fight. Bomb flashed away from as Bin arrives, and Breathe will fall. BLG survived the attempt.
Fantastic flash coming through from Elk, saves his life. It means that Weibo can't find their engage. BLG are typically the ones we thought would be engaging, but Weibo try their hands at it, can't quite make it happen. A lot of summoners down now. Are Weibo just going to feel desperate enough to go towards the Baron? I mean, they've just lost themselves a pretty big play there. They might feel like they have to.
I mean, Knight is doing Drake, and it's a 4v4 on Baron. Xiaohu has his ult, Light has his ult. The carries from Weibo have a chance here as Elk is low. Wei gonna try and get into the pit, and he does! Of course he does! Wei saves the day for BLG, subbed in and saves the game. Elk now throwing out these bombs as Weibo desperately hunting for anything. Bin is somehow escaped on the top side, and Xiaohu forces a flash as Knight finds him again! And Tarzan will fall as a double. It's insult to injury as Light has nowhere to go. My goodness! BLG are here to play.
Blink and you miss it. Light is stuffed out. Weibo are put to the sword. BLG in one fell swoop get themselves 4 Mountain Dragons for the soul and the Baron Steel and the fight, and they might just take the Nexus. Wow, Weibo, everything just fell apart.
That was a brutal way for the game to end. We've been talking about Elk all game. It's Knight that comes up huge at the end of the day. These fights on the Corki have been phenomenal. I think that was his 8th kill as he ends the game. Knight took over.
BLG, they got shown an inch and they took an entire mile. Game 1 goes to them. It was a slower game than we thought potentially could be coming out. The early game was not bereft of action. We saw that Tarzan dropped to camp to try and go for an early bot lane dive. Didn't quite work out. And I feel like that was the story of Weibo in this game. It was a microcosm of all the other things where they go for this bold play where they teleport to a side lane. They look for a bot dive, but they just about get outplayed, so it's an even trade. And then BLG still have their cross map. We saw Knight getting kills in that top lane. The one time he died, it was for that glorious 1v3 in topside. Much in that bot lane, much the same in that bot lane as well, where that dive didn't quite go off. Weibo couldn't get the clean plays.
I mean, he had a quiet early game, but for me, Knight is grabbing an MVP for that performance. Phenomenal game on the Corki. Slow and steady wins the race, apparently, for BLG. Fantastic first game, very clean. We'll see if Weibo can answer back after the break.